Hi, I'm Barry Strauber. Welcome to episode number 2 of Carlson Cowork Conversations. We're here with Jessica Heatley. She's a brand voice specialist. We're going to find out everything about Jessica, everything she's doing in her business and everything she's doing at Carlson Cowork. So, as I said before, here we go. We're here with Jessica, the awesome Jessica Heatley. We're going to talk to you a little bit about your business, about everything to do with being here at Carlson Cowork, about your attitudes about just collaboration, support, and all that stuff. But to start off, could you tell us a little bit about you?
Well, I consider myself a brand voice specialist, which is a little bit of a tweak on being a regular copywriter. I'm really interested in branding, and I have a lot of experience in that area. And I really like working with entrepreneurs and small businesses that have something really unique to offer.
Oh, good. So if someone wants their story told, essentially, if someone has a brand or a product or something that they sell and they want the unique, distinctive aspect of it to come out, they would come to you.
Right, especially if they've been having trouble figuring out how to put that into words.
Okay. Oh, good. So they're having a problem sort of getting over that point of like not being able to articulate it.
Right.
And then you're sort of the person that comes in and says, I can do that.
Yeah.
So essentially, do you feel there's a privilege to that? When I was doing research for this, I thought, what an interesting thing, because it's something personal.
It's very personal.
To someone doing that.
I really enjoy working with solopreneurs and entrepreneurs that are still working with small teams that have achieved some level of success.
Yeah.
But they literally want to take things to the next level, and whether they're working with an in-house team or other writers, it's just not happening. And the thing that I do that's different is I don't just do research on the company or the market. I sit down and have a very open, vulnerable, authentic conversation with the entrepreneur. And that's why I like working directly with entrepreneurs. And my goal is to get to the why behind the whole initiative. What's driving that individual to create something in the world and to devote their career to this thing they're pursuing. And not every business owner is ready to share that. So that's why you end up with a lot of businesses where the why doesn't show through.
Right. So I mean, the interesting part of that. So you're getting to a level with a person who's running their own business that normally they don't sort of show everyone. So the relationship that you create with each person that you do this work with has to go a little bit beyond just the transactional sort of customer relationship.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, there's an emotional concept to the way that you deal with people that you do this work for.
It's true, and it's high touch at the beginning. Ultimately, I do a lot of ghost blogging. I do a lot of writing on behalf of an entrepreneur or a brand. And it's great because I can automate your blogging, your social media, your website content, whatever you need to put out, even if it's print, even if it's PR. But in order to get to that point of automation where we're very efficient, I need to completely have a grasp on the language of your business and the entity and who the audience is.
Right.
So getting that up front requires a deep dive with the person behind the business before I can write anything for them.
So does that, in a sense, deselect certain people?
Absolutely.
Because you will meet someone and they'll say, I want my brand story told, and they'll not be as forthcoming in their exposing themselves of truly what that brand is. It would be hard to get them to that level of being able to show who they are in the true sense.
It's actually been rare that I've actually interfaced with a business owner or an entrepreneur who didn't want to share that. I have a background in journalism, And so I've developed skills over the last 12 years at the interview.
Yeah.
And the questions are very important. And very rarely do we get to the point of that first meeting where we dig into the brand to establish the voice without the entrepreneur being prepared for that.
Right.
For those who want to just automate content, just want to buy content, don't have this big mission or drive or passion behind what they're doing, I call it having multiple bottom lines. If you just have one bottom line and it's profit, then you probably don't need next level content. Next level content is for the kind of entrepreneur and the kind of brand that's trying to change the world.
Wow. Do you love this job?
I absolutely love this job.
You know, it's interesting with you, it's so great, as I've talked to you before, you have this sense that you get lost in it.
Do I?
Which is great. You love it, you've always loved doing this sort of thing. And you always love writing I knew you love writing as a young child. You came in just the world sort of like being a writer.
I wrote my first book,
child,
which was illustrated probably before kindergarten. I could read
So
before I went to
it.
kindergarten.
So you just loved it right away. You just saw the gift and the skill right away and said, this is what I should do.
The writing followed the reading. I was a voracious reader as a child, and I'm still a pretty voracious reader. But it definitely in grade school, I realized that what I wanted to do was write.
Did you just see that you could do it? You just saw that you were naturally talented and gifted to do it?
It was exciting.
Was it?
Yeah.
Did you see the power that it had over people after they would read your writing and they'd go, wow, this is making me feel differently about something?
I think that took a while. I think it was the impact that writing had on me that I realized that it changed the way that I think.
Then you would write something and afterwards you'd say, wow, I actually...
Oh no, the other people's writing when I was...
Oh, you would look at other people's writing and say, wow, this is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Wow. So tell me a little bit about just the idea of being an entrepreneur. You know, one of the reasons why we do these things, we do these conversations is because there is a unique life to that entrepreneurial sort of spirit. You need to accept a lot of things that are going to happen being an entrepreneur. You need to carve your own way. All the things that sort of you might not have to deal with if you go another way, another path. But what do you think about just being your own business person and entrepreneur?
I think that entrepreneurship is the ultimate freedom. It gives you an agency in your life that I don't think a lot of lifestyles give you. It does come with a ton of responsibility. It's terrifying and it can be really hard. But for me, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
I think that for people who have the personality, it's a no-brainer. But the challenge is that you have to find a way to make it work.
Right. But I mean, within your own sort of world of how you can make it work. You know, like you said before, I love the idea of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom gives you that allowability to say, I want to make this work, and you can be really creative about
Absolutely.
how you make that work. Yeah.
You get to decide so much about your life and about your work and your clients.
Yeah. Because you've had, I mean, early on you worked at a couple of places. Was it a very deliberate decision? Was it like, gee, I'm going to go and just do my own thing because I need that freedom? Because I think that's the overriding positive of this, that the other stuff doesn't outweigh.
It's interesting because when I was growing up, my father was an entrepreneur, and he was trying to get me started on entrepreneurial adventures like every other week.
Yeah.
It was selling perennials on the side of the road. It was all of these things.
Well, that's cool.
How can this girl have a business? But I had traditional jobs, and actually in a factory that he started was my first real job. But I didn't realize that I wanted to be an entrepreneur until I worked for an entrepreneur in the marketing company that I worked for in Pittsburgh.
And you saw that that was a model that you were able to watch.
Yeah. He shared that with me. I was close enough to see it in action.
And he explained to you how he was setting things up and how he was doing stuff.
He did. He was pretty open about the experience of being an entrepreneur.
Good.
And he was very involved in the entrepreneurial community locally. So I had a tremendous resource that way. And also the nature of the work in that job was that I would go along as the writer and document in words the business as described in the branding meeting.
Right.
So instead of just documenting creative standards or whatever, a creative brief for the graphic team, we would also develop the language. And so I got insight into every single client's business.
Wow.
At the same time as seeing how this gentleman was running his business.
At the end of the day, do you see the beauty of it? I mean, beyond freedom, do you see it maybe you being able to sort of give to it more than you could have in other traditional ways of doing business, which really then expands who you are as a person?
Absolutely.
Because you're sort of giving more.
It engages the passion of an individual in a way that's really special. And that's where I connect with my clients. But I think that it's hard when you're in the structure of an institution to really tap into what drives you. I think that people experience it to certain degrees, but when you're an entrepreneur and you are chasing your vision every day and you're responsible for making it happen in the world, that's a level of engagement that's just unparalleled, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know. I think you articulate it so well. But that is the idea, is that it's stretching you and going deep into other things that you might not have actually been able to or been required to do at a company where you might just have a good job, but they have a specific description for what you do. And the entrepreneurial thing is that you change that description daily.
Yeah, and it
And
gives
you
you
do
the
things,
freedom
yeah.
to create things that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
That there's not a paradigm for currently.
Which
And
is great.
That's how private industry drives change in the culture.
Yeah. I mean, do you recommend it to, do you sometimes recommend it to friends and say, I see you're going the digital route, this is great, you should get on the entrepreneurial bandwagon.
It's kind of like driving across the country.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain segment of the population that's driven to do that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should do it.
Right.
And I have hope for everyone that they, get to at least understand what entrepreneurship is all about,
Right.
and make a decision for themselves. But you have to be really well prepared,
Right.
and you have to consider your resources very carefully before you embark on it.
Right, right. Sometimes I'm really sort of, too overexcited. And I say,
Right.
oh, sure, you should do your own thing. There are certain things that you need to warn people about.
Absolutely.
And say, this is very, you have to be very responsible. You have to wake up every day and be very proactive. You have to be very self-driven, self-initiated, really get things moving all the time. Because nobody else is in that driver's seat, so you gotta push yourself.
The way that I see passion is that it makes it so that you kind of can't help doing the thing that you're driven to do.
Right.
And then entrepreneurship is
Right.
monetizing that.
Right. And you've loved it since the moment. I mean, you've never now just thought, well, maybe I should go back.
I think about it.
Do you? Go
I
back to
think
the
about
corporate
it
world and-
a decreasing amount of times during a year now.
Yeah.
But there's certainly an appeal to what might just be the mythology of stable employment.
Yeah.
Because I think that the future of work is diversification, and I think that the safest thing that anyone can do, whether they're in a job traditionally or they're an entrepreneur, is to diversify their income so that they're not beholden to one entity's success to be okay in life.
Right.
But still, even though I know that traditional organizations are as, beholden to the rules of the market and the evolution of work, it still can be appealing to consider going back into an organization.
Yeah. Isn't it hard? I mean, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs who say it's just such a lifestyle choice. This balance that you can figure out, like we were saying before, this personal sort of customized balance that you can create, that to go back to another place where they dictate that balance.
Right.
Or they sort of tell you this is what you're doing. And I know a lot of traditional companies would say they try not to do that now.
Right.
But I think just in their DNA, there's a tradition, there's a way of doing work at traditional places that would be trickier for people to comfortably go back to, because they've experienced this freedom.
It's kind of about boundaries. If you're not skilled at setting your own boundaries,
Right.
then it can be really challenging to manage projects and clients the way that you need to, because there's so many things to manage. And it requires so much of your focus. But if you want to have someone set those boundaries for you, then you're probably the personality that's going to succeed inside an organization.
Right. But if you have the tendency, if you actually feel empowered that you can actually set your own,
Right.
then that's the entrepreneurial path.
Very often when I talk about what I do, people's reaction is that they would do their dishes, they would crochet, they would play with their dog, they would play Nintendo, like they would do anything
Right.
but work.
Right.
And I'm like, well,
You need to be driven. Yeah. So in terms of an entrepreneurial sort of road, and then what we're proposing here at Carlson Cowork, do you think those just sort of beautifully mesh together? Because I'm sort of giving my own little editorial comment. But do you think the idea that this is, like you were saying, it's a tricky road, it is your self-driven sort of power to be able to make entrepreneurial work for you. But then you come into a space where there's all these other people doing the same thing.
right.
Is collaboration and support necessary to be successful, to find those support systems? Because it is a tricky road to take.
Absolutely. I don't think a business happens without resources. And I think that those can manifest in a lot of different ways. But the resource of collaboration and actually physically sharing space with people is kind of peer pressure in the best possible way.
Yeah, I like peer pressure. I'm not saying, but I think that's interesting because it is, in a sense, wow, everyone's so awesome. I should, get up to that level. I see what they're doing. They're sort of driving me to do, to sort of be to what, sort of get to the level that they're getting.
Well, even on a ground floor level, it creates a bit of a boundary. Just that other people are going and putting in hours and being at the office and getting it done. And you see that, and it's something that you engage with.
Right.
And you're paying to be there.
Right.
It's a choice. So you're saying, all right, I want to be part of this community because I'm making it happen too.
Right.
So there's a sense of accountability to the community that accountability is something that can be missing inside an entrepreneurial venture. Because when you're only accountable to yourself is going to get tired. There are going to be days when you're not at your best.
Right. If you're negotiating internally with yourself, it's going to be tough.
You're going to have bad days.
Right.
But when you're accountable to someone else, because you've shared your vision with them, or because you've agreed to be their partner in something, or just cheerleaders for each other, it creates a boundary.
Right.
And it's really helpful in giving the business structure.
From an inspirational aspect, from a lot of different points of view.
One of the most amazing things is that I think that being in a community of entrepreneurs allows each business to just overcome its obstacles more efficiently. Because when you see other people struggling with obstacles that translate to your business, they might manifest differently in your unique business than in theirs. But if it gives you insight into a process or a way of approaching a problem, you can avoid doing things wrong. You can make better decisions and learn from each other, even though you're doing dramatically different things.
Yeah, it's interesting, yeah. I think, from my own personal experience too, I don't know, I couldn't have done it without the help of other people. But when you talk to people about being an entrepreneur, they sort of sometimes think it's this solo sort of act of bravery when it isn't. It usually is by getting other people to help you.
Yeah.
And if you can do it institutionally by coming to a place where they've set up a system and an environment, then that's great.
Well, even just the emotional support that's required for a person to move ahead and stick with it even when there are bad days.
Yeah.
that involves other people, and I think it takes a village basically to raise a business.
Yeah.
And that comes in really different ways. It can
Right.
be financial, it can be emotional support, it can be just functional things like
Right.
having somebody clean your house or watch your kids.
Right.
There's so much, it's a whole life that needs to be invested
Right.
when you're starting something up, unless you start with a lot of resources.
Right.
But the kind of entrepreneurs that I encounter most days are people who had a passion and didn't have a lot of money and were determined to make it work.
So now we can sort of define this thing as co-working. So but I mean, so is co-working then sort of essential, you know? The way we talk about it, because we're advocates, and the way I see it, is that it does seem so important to an entrepreneur. It seems so important to people to be in a place where they receive all those benefits, support, you know, accountability. Because I think and you can discuss this, it takes out the word competition. There is no competition. I don't even know if there was competition before, but what we see in co-working is there's no competition, it is all support. We all want each other to do a great job, and we all want each other to have a great company and do really great results. Do you see it that way as well?
I think that has to do with the makeup of the community, frankly. At Carlson, we have an atmosphere that's not competitive and is incredibly nurturing. People are helping each other, both by working together and then overtly by one person saying, I need your help.
Right.
I don't necessarily think that happens everywhere that there's co-working.
Is competition sort of, I mean, do you see competition now as why was there, why would there be? I mean, people come in here and say to me, there's a lot of marketing companies here. So why are you here? And I say, because we don't see that. Like you said, there is no competition. We're all rooting for each other to do well. We all have this sort of unique brand like you do, the unique articulation of who we are, and so we're all not similar, we're uniquely different. But is this sense of competition just always there and you have to consciously push it aside, or?
I think to a certain extent. We certainly can't deny that competition exists, but for myself and for my clients who are creating really interesting things in the world and pushing the edges of human innovation, I see an abundant universe, and I think that focusing on competition comes from a perspective of scarcity, and I think there is scarcity. There are limited resources in this world, but I think that if we genuinely apply ourselves to real problems, that solving those problems is always going to be an opportunity.
Right.
And so, if you're solving a finite problem for a finite market, you might have to continue to diversify your offerings. Maybe you're competing with yourself by making, the limit of your offering too narrow.
So a place like Carlson, then, why do you think it's succeeding in giving entrepreneurs exactly what, the kind of environment they need? Do you think it's because, like you said, we've all bought into this true intention of support, lifting each other up, really, truly wanting everyone to be successful? Do you think that's the community, that's what a community has to do, has to understand that if you're not like-minded in that sense, then you're just in a large coffee shop?
Exactly. It is written into the DNA of the co-work, right? We have this formula.
Right.
Community plus collaboration plus capitalism equals growth.
Those guys would be so happy.
But no, I think that my take on this might be a little different than other people, and I know that Chris Cooley has touched on this. But I think that buy-in to the culture of the place is unique to the types of people who sign up and decide to come here. But I also think that the role of landsmen in the community is really interesting, because most co-works, which now we're seeing numbers, a lot of co-works fail.
Right.
Most co-works are focused on the real estate first, because if you don't have a space, you don't have a shared space.
Right.
Sharing the space is key, that's the goal,
The space
but the
itself.
space functionally
You
has
need a
to
space,
exist
right.
in order for people to share it.
Right.
And I think that's a struggle for people who are just at the level where they're starting up their businesses. If they can already afford their own real estate,
Right.
they don't really need to do this co-working thing.
Right.
And I think you have to be really devoted to the vision of co-working in order to start a co-work. So I think that a lot of co-works fail because they constantly have to be managing the bottom line and the rent.
Right.
And there's, rising real estate prices and all of these things that can impact that. In our situation with the supportive landsmen, they've deliberately kept the rent at a place where we can all afford it.
Yeah.
They created deliberately a place where businesses could grow, and with that comes this assumption that these businesses need to grow and don't have a lot of resources.
Right.
And since we have that stable real estate, we get to focus on who we bring in
Right.
and who we interact with
Right.
and our own businesses,
Right.
rather than having this fundamental, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, fundamental
Right.
need to make sure that we can keep the lights on.
Right.
We don't have to struggle with that, and I think that's
You're
a
absolutely
privilege and a really incredible way to go at this.
It's sort of a perfect storm of all the partners that went into this, of contributing to a place that is uniquely sort of, you don't have to, you're right, you don't have to rely on other things. It just was a unique setup that was created for entrepreneurs to do well, to like you said, to grow and not have any other sort of concerns or needs or problems or.
It's unique.
Yeah.
Like, we have the built-in stability
Yeah.
of the property owner, and in most situations, like we work that have the stability of the real estate partner,
Right.
they're not focused on the community.
Right.
They're focused on volume,
Right.
churn, getting
Right.
a lot of people
Right.
in and out, right?
Right.
Having a bunch of memberships,
Yeah.
like Planet Fitness, like you do that on volume. And
Right.
here, each of us entrepreneur members, we don't have the extra job of keeping the
Right.
co-work open.
Right.
And also, we have a community that's focused on collaboration.
It's interesting. We've created an environment where if you are an entrepreneur, you can come in and it's this sort of perfect sense of just focus on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and if you don't
And
want
we'll come around you, but there aren't any other sort of problems or parts of it that you have to worry about.
Right.
Because we've taken care of
yeah, it's one
Yeah.
check. It's not,
It
the
is
internet
true.
works, and if it doesn't work, you can
Do
talk
you
to
think
John.
that's why we're successful in Rochester? I think, and why some of the others might not have been successful.
I think, well, I don't actually know the background of that many
Right.
that have started in Rochester. But I do think that's a big part of our success. But both of those things, the focus on community and the devotion that people have to, be part of what everyone else is doing.
Right, right,
And then also the stability
right.
that the place actually has.
Right, right. Because it's amazing how no one really has ever, I mean, most people come here and they never leave. So we have this sort of really nice community that's got to know each other.
Right, but there probably have been lean months.
Right.
But if there was a lean month where, if you and I got together and we're paying the rent and one of us had a bad month,
Right.
you would be like, I need to find somebody else or we're closing.
Right.
If there was a lean month, I don't know about it.
Right, right. Because that's sort of kept
This place has the flexibility to
out
have
of that.
the fluctuations of entrepreneurial life
Right.
without it threatening the ecosystem.
And that's the great sort of supportive landsman development, yeah, and just having people who are just focused on this end goal of like, we have to create a great place for people to come to.
It's a multiple bottom line.
it's a multi, yeah, which is great because that usually doesn't happen.
One of the things that jumps out to me though is just the diversity of people that I get to interact with.
Yeah.
Having been involved in branding at a high level, I'm pretty used to getting to see a lot of different types of businesses and people.
Yeah.
But here, people are doing a dramatic diversity of things with their time and come from all kinds of different backgrounds. And getting to spend time, like run into those people in the cafeteria,
Right.
that's unusual. Knowing people's names And being able to ask someone, you know, who works for a huge corporation, someone who's, you know, a remote employee for a company in New York that has 10,000 employees, or go to somebody who's like just hasn't sold their first thing yet. Getting to talk to all of those people consistently in one place is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Is it then just so great that we have an educational sort of aspect to this, that you're constantly learning about everything?
Oh yeah, the fact that the community is creating its own programming so that we can further share the assets of the community.
They're institutionally making people sort of explain what they do.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
I think that you do not get that when you go into a coffee shop.
Right.
We don't have the grinding of coffee beans in here, which is great. But also, when you go into a coffee shop, no one is, you know, there are coffee shops that have little flags on the table now where you can say, come sit with me, or stay away.
Do they have flags on the table now that say come sit with me?
Certain progressive coffee shops do, that will say a variety of things.
Wow, that's awesome.
But like, I'm going to wear headphones, but you can sit with me.
We should have those. No.
We don't need them.
Right. That's true. But that's fun. But I mean, just the idea that you can learn every single day, I think is interesting.
Yeah, you can if you want to. There are multiple, you know, communication platforms employed here, so that we can go on Slack and have a conversation there. We can go on Facebook and tell people like, hey, I'm going to this event. Do you want to come with me?
What do you think? Yeah.
People can share resources. It's incredibly dynamic.
And like you said, the institutional aspect where we have people doing literal lunch and learns in this room because we feel that that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, that's incredible, and it's a resource worth paying for. Actually, it's this incredible bonus that people are willing to get up and just share with the community the thing that they understand.
But then I think they see it as this two-way, return on investment, because if you give a lunch and learn, you're probably getting back input and feedback that somehow will help you be better.
That certainly worked that way for me. My lunch and learn here was really my first foray into public speaking, period. Which was a goal
but
that
you were
I set.
awesome. I remember you were great.
I was the best.
Yeah, you were very good. Well, thank you. We're concluding our episode number 2 with the great Jessica. I just, if anybody out there has any questions, please get those questions to Carlson Cowork, and we'll go to the website, www.carlsoncowork.com. But look out for episode number 3, and take care. See you guys. Bye.